Before I tell you this story, let me ask you something. What if 6 children of a billionaire were cursed to never sleep, not even for a single night? What if the silence of a giant mansion hid screams that no one ever dared to hear? Today you will uncover a mystery that has haunted one of the richest families in the world. Subscribe to my channel, like this video, share it with your friends, and don't forget to comment what you think will happen next. Because trust me, this story will keep you awake tonight. Just like them. The mansion stood like a shadow over the city. Perched on a hill, its windows glowed with cold golden light, but inside, the air carried something darker. No laughter, no warmth, only whispers that made the servants cross themselves before entering the halls. At the heart of this mansion lived a billionaire, Mr. Adrian Crosswell, a man of power, feared in the business world, respected by politicians, yet avoided by neighbors. His wealth bought silence, but it could never buy peace, because inside his mansion lived 6 children, 6 identical twins, pale, beautiful, with eyes too sharp for their age. And what made them terrifying wasn't just their silence. It was the fact that they had never once in their lives fallen asleep. Not even for a single minute. No matter how much money their father spent, no matter how many doctors were summoned, the result was always the same. The children show no signs of fatigue, but they also show no signs of rest. Some doctors whispered that it was a medical marvel. Others swore it was a curse, and soon no doctor dared to return. The children remained awake, always, watching, waiting. One winter evening, when the city below was swallowed by fog, a new maid arrived at the mansion. Her name was Eliza. Eliza was poor. She had grown up in the rough streets of the city, her skin darkened by years of labor, her hands calloused from work. She was young, but life had aged her faster than time should have. She had nothing, no family, no savings, no hope, except this job which she clutched like a drowning woman clings to driftwood. To her, this was more than a job. It was survival, but no one had told her about the children. The heavy wooden doors opened with a moan, and the echo of her hesitant footsteps filled the marble floor. The head butler, an older man with a stiff posture and eyes that never revealed emotion, met her at the entrance. "Welcome to Crosswell Manor, Miss Eliza. You must follow the rules here. Speak only when asked. Do not enter the West Wing without permission. And above all, do not attempt to interact with the children unless instructed." Eliza frowned, clutching her small bag tighter. "The children?" But surely the butler cut her off sharply. "Do as you are told and you will keep your job. Question orders. And you will be gone by morning." His voice carried no warmth, only warning. She nodded quickly. "Yes, sir." As she followed him down the endless corridors, she noticed the silence of the mansion. Not the normal kind of silence, but something heavier, as though the walls themselves were holding their breath. The portraits lining the halls stared down at her, men and women with cold expressions, painted eyes that seemed almost alive. She shivered, though the fire burned in every room they passed. When she was finally led to her quarters, she unpacked the little she had, a worn dress, a pair of shoes, and a tattered book she carried everywhere. That night, as she lay in her bed, she heard it for the first time. Whispers. They weren't clear. A murmur. A soft chant, like the wind dragging secrets through the cracks of the old walls. She sat up, her heart pounding. The sound seemed to come from the West Wing. "Eliza," she whispered to herself, shaking her head. "Don't get curious. Don't ruin this." But still, she couldn't sleep. The next morning, her tasks began. She scrubbed the floors, polished the silver, and cleaned the vast empty dining hall where no laughter had ever rung. Servants moved like shadows, their eyes lowered, their lips sealed. No one spoke unless necessary. It was as though they all carried an invisible chain. At lunch, she overheard 2 maids whispering in the kitchen. "Do you think she knows?" one asked. "Not yet," the other replied quickly. "But she will. The children always make their presence known." That night, Eliza discovered what they meant. As she carried linens down the corridor, she felt eyes on her. She turned and froze. 6 figures stood at the end of the hallway. Children, identical in every way. Their pale skin glowed in the dim candlelight, their eyes wide, unblinking. They didn't move. They didn't speak. They just stared. Eliza swallowed hard. "Hello?" Her voice trembled. No reply. The children tilted their heads in perfect unison, like dolls being examined by an unseen hand. Then, slowly, they turned and walked back into the West Wing. The silence they left behind was heavier than any scream. Her breath caught in her throat. She wanted to run, but her legs refused. Instead, she stood frozen until the butler's voice startled her. "I warned you. Do not engage with them." His expression was grim. "They do not sleep. They do not play. They do not live like other children. Remember that, Miss Eliza, or this house will eat you alive." That night, she couldn't shake their eyes from her mind. 6 pairs, wide and dark, staring into her soul. She lay awake until dawn, wondering who they were, or what they were. Days passed, and Eliza slowly adjusted to the mansion. She learned the quiet rules. Never touch the children's belongings, never ask questions, never linger in the corridors after nightfall. But curiosity gnawed at her like a persistent shadow. She noticed subtle things others ignored, the twins whispering in corners, their pale fingers tracing invisible shapes in the air, their synchronized movements, the eerie echo of their footsteps despite being barefoot. One evening, while cleaning the grand library, she saw something she hadn't before. A small hidden door behind a bookshelf. It was partially open and faint light flickered from inside. She felt an urge to peek, but remembered the butler's warning. Her heart raced as she imagined the consequences. Yet, something deeper inside her whispered that this door held the truth about the children. That night, as the clock struck midnight, she heard it again. The whispers, more insistent this time, almost like a plea. She tiptoed to the corridor, peering down the long hallway toward the West Wing. The children were there, as if waiting for her. They didn't speak, but their eyes seemed to search for something in her. Something human, something warm. Eliza's hand trembled as she reached for the doorknob of the hidden door. Just as she touched it, a soft voice whispered, almost inaudibly, "Please, help us." She froze. The voice was barely more than a breath, yet it sent chills down her spine. The 6 children were watching her, their faces expectant, vulnerable, and full of silent torment. Her heart ached. This was not cruelty. This was suffering. She had seen pain in the streets, in abandoned children begging for food, but never like this. These children were trapped, and no one had noticed. Until now. From that moment, Eliza knew her life had changed. She was no longer just a maid in a mansion of wealth. She was the only chance these children had to find rest, to find peace, to find sleep. And for the first time, the mansion felt less like a prison and more like a place where hope, however faint, might exist. But danger was near. The billionaire father, Mr. Crosswell, had secrets, and the children's curse was tied to them. One misstep, and Eliza could lose more than her job. She could lose herself. And yet, she couldn't turn away. Not now, not ever, because the children had noticed her. And for the first time in their lives, their eyes did not simply watch. They seemed to hope. If you thought the first night was strange, wait until you hear what happened next. Remember, subscribe to my channel, like this video, share it with friends, and comment your theories. You won't believe what the children were hiding, and what the poor maid did next would change everything forever. Eliza woke before sunrise, as she had every morning since arriving at the Crosswell mansion. The corridors were still and silent, but something about the quiet now felt different. The whispers were gone, replaced by an oppressive stillness, as though the mansion itself was holding its breath. She dressed quietly, careful not to disturb the servants who moved like shadows along the marble floors. Carrying her cleaning supplies, she made her way toward the grand nursery, the place where the 6 children spent most of their time. No one had invited her there, yet a strange pull compelled her. Perhaps it was curiosity, or perhaps it was instinct. When she arrived, the room was empty. Moonlight streamed through tall windows, casting long skeletal shadows across the floor. The beds were neatly made, yet the sheets were cold and untouched. She stepped closer, noticing faint marks on the floor, like tiny footprints, though the children had been barefoot the night before. Eliza, a soft voice whispered, almost as if the air itself were speaking. She turned sharply but saw no one. The whisper came again, this time clearer and distinctly female, though childlike. "Help us!" Her heart pounded. She looked around, eyes scanning the room. The 6 children were nowhere in sight, yet the sense of being watched was overwhelming. She realized they must be hiding somewhere, always hiding, always observing, always awake. Determined, she called softly, "Are you here? It's okay. I won't hurt you." A small giggle echoed from the far corner. She took careful steps forward and discovered a hidden door partially concealed by a tall wardrobe. The door creaked slightly as she pushed it open, revealing a tiny playroom. And there they were, the 6 twins sitting in perfect silence, staring at her. Their eyes glimmered in the pale morning light, unblinking, unnervingly synchronized. Eliza swallowed hard. "Hello? I'm Eliza. I'm here to help." One of the twins, a girl with the palest skin and eyes like midnight, tilted her head and whispered, "Nobody helps." I want to," Eliza said softly. "Please, let me try." The twins exchanged silent glances, their expressions unreadable. Slowly, they moved toward her, careful, as if testing whether she was worthy of trust. She held out her hand, but they did not touch it. Instead, they merely studied her, their gaze penetrating, heavy with a pain she couldn't comprehend. Days passed, and Eliza began to notice patterns in their behavior. They were restless, pacing their rooms for hours. Sometimes they whispered to each other in a language she didn't understand. They never ate much, yet they never seemed weak. She tried talking to the other servants about it, but they avoided her gaze, shaking their heads, muttering things like, "You don't want to know," or, "It's better not to get involved." One night, while tidying the study, she found a stack of old diaries belonging to the children's mother. The pages were yellowed and fragile, filled with neat handwriting. She opened one carefully, her eyes scanning the words. The entries spoke of sleepless nights, of fear, and of a secret illness that had plagued the family. But the last entry was different. It ended abruptly, with a line scrawled in large, desperate letters. "If anyone finds them, please help them sleep." Eliza's chest tightened. She realized that the children's father, the billionaire, had been hiding something. The sleeplessness was not just a quirk or a medical anomaly. It was something deeper. Something tied to loss, fear, and perhaps even a curse she didn't yet understand. That night, she heard the whispers again. 6 voices, faint and trembling. "Help! Help! Help!" Following the sound, she found the twins standing near the grand fireplace, their faces pale, eyes wide, bodies trembling as though holding back exhaustion that didn't exist. She knelt before them. "I want to help. Tell me. Tell me what's wrong." A boy, perhaps the oldest, stepped forward. "We dream, but we wake," he whispered. "Always awake, always watching. We cannot sleep." Eliza reached out her hand, her voice gentle. Maybe you just need someone to show you how." "I can try." They stared at her silently. Then something unexpected happened. The smallest twin, a girl no older than 5, placed her hand on Eliza's arm. Her touch was light, almost ethereal, but it carried a weight of longing that made Eliza's heart ache. For the first time, the children did not retreat. They did not whisper warnings. They simply allowed her presence. And in that fragile moment, Eliza realized that the connection she felt with them was something rare, something powerful. She was no longer just a maid. She was their anchor. Over the following days, she experimented cautiously. She sang soft lullabies she had learned as a child, whispered stories, and even held their hands while guiding them through simple breathing exercises. Each night she felt tiny shifts, sleeps she could not see but somehow sense. The children's movements became slightly less frantic. Their eyes, though still unblinking, seemed less hollow, yet the mansion remained a labyrinth of secrets. One night she discovered a hidden corridor behind the library leading to a small, locked chamber. Inside, she found portraits of a woman she assumed was their mother, along with strange medical instruments and jars filled with unidentifiable substances. The air was thick with the scent of old herbs and something metallic, like iron. As she examined the room, she heard the father's footsteps approaching. "Eliza," he said, his voice cold and commanding. "You should not be here." She stood her ground, her hand resting protectively on the nearest twin, who had followed her silently. "Sir, please. The children. They need help. You cannot keep them like this." Mr. Crosswell's face hardened. "They do not sleep. They never will. And no one will change that." Eliza's voice wavered, but her resolve did not. "I don't believe that. There must be a way. They deserve rest, just like any other child." For a moment, the billionaire said nothing. Then, with a grim nod, he turned and left. His warning was clear. Try, and you will regret it. That night, Eliza stayed with the children longer than ever. She whispered lullabies, told them stories of faraway lands, and held their hands as they paced. For the first time, she noticed a subtle change, a flicker of eyelids, a breath that seemed deeper, a sense of calm passing over them. The twins had begun to trust her. And for the first time in years, the mansion's darkness felt a little less suffocating. But Eliza knew the road ahead was perilous. The children's sleeplessness was not just a problem, it was a secret, a curse, a burden tied to their family's past. And uncovering it fully would require courage, patience, and something far more powerful than fear. Something only she could provide: compassion. As she lay awake that night, listening to the soft, synchronized breathing of the 6 children, she made a silent promise. No matter the cost, she would help them sleep. Even if it meant facing the darkest secrets of the Crosswell mansion, she would not turn away. And in the stillness of that cold, shadowed house, the 6 children stared at her once more, their eyes no longer accusatory, but full of something else: hope. Before we dive deeper, remember to subscribe to my channel, like this video, share it with friends, and comment your thoughts. Things are about to get darker, stranger, and more mysterious. The poor maid is about to uncover secrets that even the billionaire fears, and the 6 children's curse is closer than ever to being revealed. Eliza had been in the mansion for nearly 2 weeks, and each day the sense of unease had grown heavier. The children, though beginning to trust her, were still strange, distant, and almost unnervingly perceptive. It was as if they could read her thoughts before she even spoke them. That night, while carrying a tray of food to the twins, she noticed something odd. One of the children, a boy with eyes as dark as obsidian, had drawn strange symbols on the floor using chalk. They were intricate, geometric shapes, almost hypnotic in their precision. Eliza crouched beside him. "What? What is this?" she asked softly. The boy looked at her, unblinking. "It keeps the darkness away," he whispered. "If we stop, it comes?" Eliza's heart raced. The darkness? What darkness? A girl, the smallest of the 6, stepped forward holding a worn teddy bear. "It's what makes us never sleep," she said, her voice barely audible. "We try, we fight, but it never ends." Eliza felt a pang of sorrow. "I will help you," she promised. "I don't know how yet, but I will." That night, after tucking the children in as best as she could, she wandered the mansion, searching for clues. The hidden corridors, the locked chambers, and the portraits of the children's mother weighed heavily on her mind. She returned to the small chamber behind the library, determined to learn more. Inside, she discovered old journals and letters hidden beneath floorboards. They were written by the billionaire himself and by the children's mother. The words painted a grim picture of obsession and tragedy. The mother had suffered from a mysterious illness, one that affected the family in ways no doctor could understand. She had warned of a family burden, a curse that would follow the children unless someone intervened. Eliza's hands trembled. Could it be that the children's sleeplessness was inherited, or something more supernatural? The next night, she risked venturing into the West Wing alone. The twins were restless, pacing in a synchronized rhythm. Shadows danced along the walls, twisted by the candlelight. Suddenly, a cold wind swept through the hallway, extinguishing the candles. The children froze. "Don't be afraid," Eliza whispered, stepping closer. "I'm here." A boy pointed toward a large mirror on the far wall. As she looked, she saw not her own reflection, but a fleeting image of the children's mother. Her eyes were hollow, her expression one of pain and warning. The twins shivered, their small hands clutching at one another. "Eliza, she watches us," one of the twins whispered. "She's angry." Eliza's heart raced. "No, I think she wants to help us," she said. "She wants us to be free." That night, as she stayed by the children, she began a routine of singing soft lullabies, telling gentle stories, and holding their hands. She felt something shifting in the air. A tension that had been unbroken for years seemed to loosen slightly. Their movements became less frantic, their pacing slower. And for the first time, she thought she saw their eyelids flicker, almost like the beginning of sleep. But danger was never far. The billionaire's presence loomed over the mansion like a storm cloud. One evening, she overheard him speaking on the phone in a low, furious tone. "They are mine," he growled. "No one will touch them. No one will break what I've preserved. If anyone interferes, they will regret it." Eliza's hands shook. She realized she was risking everything. Not just her job, but her life. Yet she could not turn away. The children needed her. They had no one else. As the nights passed, the mansion seemed to awaken. Strange noises echoed through the halls, soft sobs, faint laughter, the sound of footsteps that didn't belong to anyone she could see. The portrait seemed to watch her every move, the air thick with unspoken warnings. One night, while comforting the twins, she noticed something she had never seen before. A small, hidden compartment in the nursery wall opened silently. Inside was a box containing 6 identical pendants, each engraved with symbols that matched the chalk drawings on the floor. The children's eyes lit up when she held them out. "These belong to her, our mother," whispered the eldest boy. "She left them for us, for someone to help us." Eliza placed a pendant around each child's neck. Immediately, a soft glow radiated from the symbols. The children's breathing became more even, their movements calmer. For the first time, the oppressive weight in the room seemed to lift slightly. Tears streamed down Eliza's face as she realized the significance. The pendants were not merely jewelry. They were a key, a connection to their mother, a way to protect them from whatever had caused their sleeplessness. But the mansion had one more secret to reveal. As she studied the pendants, a hidden door in the floor creaked open, revealing a narrow staircase leading down into darkness. A chill ran through her. Something ancient and powerful lurked below, something tied to the children's curse and the family's tragic past. The twins clung to her, their unblinking eyes wide. "We're scared," whispered the smallest girl. "I know," Eliza said softly. "But I think this is where the answers lie." She took a deep breath and began descending the staircase, the children following closely. The air grew colder, heavier, almost as if it resisted their presence. Shadows danced along the walls, whispering fragments of warnings, memories, and fears. At the bottom, she found a small, candle-lit room filled with relics of the past, old toys, letters, and photographs of the mother and the children as infants. On a pedestal in the center lay a single dusty book bound in black leather. Its pages were filled with strange symbols and incantations. Eliza opened the book carefully. The words spoke of a ritual, a method to release the children from their sleepless torment. But the instructions were vague, cryptic, and dangerous. One wrong step could awaken forces beyond her understanding, forces that might harm the children or her. The eldest boy reached out and touched the book. "Is this how we sleep?" he whispered. "I think it is," Eliza said softly. "And I think I'm the one who must try it." That night she returned to the nursery with the book, her hands trembling. The children watched her intently, their trust in her absolute despite their fear. She began reading aloud, following the rituals as carefully as she could, guiding the children through the steps, holding their hands, chanting softly in the dim candlelight. The mansion seemed to respond. The walls groaned, the air shimmered, and for the first time in years, the oppressive darkness that had hung over the house seemed to waver. The children's breathing deepened. Their eyes, though still wide, seemed to soften. Eliza knew this was only the beginning. The secrets of the mansion, the curse that had bound the children for so long, and the power of their mother's memory were all converging. If she succeeded, the children might finally know rest. But if she failed, the darkness would consume them all. And in that fragile, flickering light, the 6 children stared at her, not with fear, but with hope. If you think you've seen the darkness in the Crosswell mansion, think again. Subscribe to my channel, like this video, share it with friends, and comment your thoughts because tonight, the poor maid will take a step no one else dared, and the 6 children's lives will begin to change in ways even the billionaire fears. Eliza had learned more about the mansion in the last few weeks than she ever imagined possible. The corridors no longer seemed empty. They whispered secrets, shifting shadows, and sometimes warning murmurs. The children were restless, pacing, whispering to each other in their secret language. Yet now they allowed her closer than ever, and she could see something hidden beneath their wide, sleepless eyes. Fear. Yes, but also hope. That night, she gathered the children in the nursery. "We are going to try something," she said softly, her hands trembling. "I don't know if it will work, but we have to try." The eldest boy, his unblinking eyes locked on hers, nodded slowly. "We trust you." Eliza opened the black leather book she had found in the hidden chamber, flipping carefully to the ritual she had memorized. The pages were filled with strange symbols, instructions that spoke of energy, presence, and the unseen bond between a child and a caregiver. She took a deep breath and began. "Sit with me," she whispered, guiding the twins to form a circle. She held their hands in hers, closing her eyes, focusing on warmth, love, and protection. The room felt suddenly colder, heavier, as if the walls themselves were observing, judging. The children trembled, but they stayed still, their breaths synchronized with hers. "Close your eyes if you can," she said softly. "Trust me!" For a moment, nothing happened. The air grew tense, almost unbearable. The shadows in the corners stretched, twisted, and seemed to lean toward them, hungry for disruption. Eliza whispered words from the book, her voice quivering. "Sleep. Let them rest. Release the burden." A low hum filled the room, vibrating through the floorboards. The children's hands tightened around hers. She felt a strange energy rise from the floor, curling around her like a living thing. It was not malevolent, but it was ancient, powerful, and waiting for permission to act. Suddenly, one of the twins gasped, a sound she hadn't heard before. His eyes, unblinking for years, flickered, almost like a shutter in a camera. Then another, and another. Slowly, painfully, their eyelids began to droop. Eliza held her breath, her heart racing. "It's working. It's really working," she whispered. The mansion seemed to respond. The walls groaned softly, the shadows recoiling slightly, as if accepting her claim over the children's fate. The whispers that had haunted the hallways faded, replaced by the soft, steady rhythm of breathing. Tears streamed down Eliza's face as she realized the enormity of what was happening. The children, her children now in spirit if not in blood, were finally finding peace. She stroked their hair, whispered lullabies, and kept her focus unwavering. But the mansion was far from forgiving. A loud crash echoed from the west wing. Books fell, doors slammed, the chandeliers swayed. The air grew thick and suffocating. She sensed the billionaire's presence, or perhaps the mansion itself, angry at this defiance. "Eliza, stop!" A voice boomed from the staircase. Mr. Crosswell's figure appeared in the doorway, his face pale and rigid with rage. "What have you done?" "I'm helping them," she shouted, refusing to release their hands. "They've suffered long enough. They deserve rest, just like any other child." He stepped closer, his shadow looming over them. "You do not understand. This is not just about sleep. This is about the family, their mother, the curse, everything we've preserved. If you interfere, you could destroy them." Eliza's gaze never wavered. "I understand enough. I see their pain, and I won't let it continue." The room trembled again, dust falling from the ceiling, the chandeliers swinging wildly. The children's breathing deepened, their bodies finally relaxing. Their eyelids, still fragile, closed slightly for the first time in years. The billionaire froze, disbelief etched into every line of his face. How is this possible? He muttered, almost to himself. Eliza whispered to the children, her voice steady and calm. Sleep, you're safe. It's okay to rest. One by one, the twins' eyes closed fully, their bodies sinking into their beds as if gravity had finally claimed them. Their breathing was steady, rhythmic, almost peaceful. For the first time, silence in the mansion was not oppressive. It was a quiet relief. Mr. Crosswell stepped back, his face a mixture of awe and fear. He whispered, I didn't think anyone could, not after all these years. Eliza looked up at him, determination in her eyes. It was never about power, sir. It was about love, compassion, something money could never buy. The children slept through the night, their chests rising and falling in perfect harmony. The mansion's oppressive air seemed to lift slightly, shadows retreating to the corners. The whispers were gone. Even the portraits seemed less hostile, their painted eyes softer, more observant than accusing. Eliza sat beside them, holding their small hands, tears streaming silently. She realized the truth. She had not just helped them sleep. She had broken a barrier, healed a wound that had existed for years, and become the guardian they had been waiting for. But she also knew this was only the beginning. The secrets of the mansion were not fully revealed. The curse's origin, the mother's death, the reason the billionaire had kept them awake, all of it was still shrouded in mystery, and somewhere in the darkness, a force she could not yet name watched, waiting to see if her courage and love would be enough to protect the 6 children. And herself, Eliza whispered softly, brushing a strand of hair from the eldest boy's forehead. Rest now. It's your time. And for the first time in years, in the silent, cold mansion of the Crosswells, 6 children slept. If you followed this story until now, get ready. Subscribe to my channel, like this video, share it, and comment your thoughts because tonight, the mystery of the 6 sleepless children will finally be revealed, and the poor maid will change their lives forever. The mansion was quiet, but not peaceful. It was as if it were holding its breath, waiting for the final act to unfold. The 6 children lay asleep for the first time in years, fragile as if sleep itself were a new experience, yet their small chests rose and fell evenly. Eliza sat beside them, exhausted but resolute. She had followed the ritual from the black leather book, guiding them through the delicate balance of trust, warmth, and the protective energy of their mother's memory. But something was still unresolved. The mansion felt alive, watching her, judging her. The shadows twisted in corners and the air was heavy with anticipation. Eliza knew the final truth had to be uncovered, the origin of the curse, the reason the children could not sleep, and the secret their father had hidden for years. She returned to the hidden chamber beneath the library, carrying the pendants and the black leather book. There she found what she had not seen before. A letter, yellowed with age, written in hurried, desperate handwriting. It was from the children's mother. To whoever finds them, my beloved children are bound by a curse of my own making. I did it to protect them, to shield them from a danger too dark to name. But I feared I would fail, and now I leave them in your hands. Break the chains of the sleepless nights, and you will give them what I could not. Protect them, and the darkness will release them. Eliza's hand shook as she read. The curse was not malicious. It had been a desperate act of love, a protective measure gone wrong. The children's sleeplessness was the result of this magic intertwined with fear, trauma, and a powerful energy that had been bound to the mansion itself. She understood what she had to do. The ritual she had begun must now reach its final stage. It required not just her presence, but the emotional energy of the children's father, who had unknowingly reinforced the curse with his fear and obsession. Eliza sought Mr. Crosswell. She found him in the study, staring at the portraits of his late wife, his hands trembling. "Sir," she said softly, "I know the truth. The curse! It was never meant to harm them. It was meant to protect them. But your fear kept it alive. You have to help me end it." He looked at her, disbelief in his eyes. How can I help after all these years? I've done everything to protect them, and yet they've suffered." "Love is enough," Eliza said. your presence, your acceptance, your forgiveness. Give them that, and the curse will break. Mr. Crosswell hesitated, then slowly approached the nursery. He knelt beside the children, tears streaming down his face. "I am so sorry," he whispered. "I never meant for this to happen. Please, forgive me." As he spoke, the pendants around the children's necks glowed brighter, the symbols shimmering with light. The mansion trembled, but this time not with anger, rather with release. The shadows softened, the air lifted, and a warmth spread through the hallways. Eliza held the children's hands, chanting softly from the book. "Sleep, my darlings. Sleep and be free." The children stirred, murmuring softly in their dreams. Their eyelids closed fully for the first time ever. They were not just sleeping, they were healing, releasing years of fear and suffering. The billionaire collapsed beside them, overcome with emotion. I can't believe it," he said, voice breaking. They're finally free." Eliza smiled, exhausted but triumphant. "It's done. They're safe. They can finally rest." But the mansion had one final reminder of the cost of their ordeal. From the hidden chamber beneath the library, a faint wail echoed, a sound of sorrow, of a love lost, of a mother watching over her children from beyond. Eliza felt a chill, but she also felt a profound peace. The mother's spirit had finally acknowledged that her children were safe. Over the next days, the mansion transformed. The oppressive air lifted, the shadows softened, and laughter, tentative but real, began to echo through the halls. The children explored their rooms, curious and joyful, their energy now tempered by the normal rhythm of sleep and wakefulness. Mr. Crosswell, once a man of cold power and fear, became gentle, attentive, and emotionally present. He spent hours with his children, learning how to comfort them, to nurture them, to love them without fear. Eliza, once a poor maid with nothing, had become their guardian, their protector, and their link to the freedom they had never known. She walked through the mansion, her presence calm, her hands full of hope. One evening, as the sun set behind the mansion, casting a golden glow over the halls, the 6 children slept peacefully in their nursery. Eliza sat by the window, watching, listening to the rhythm of their breathing. The mansion no longer felt like a prison. It felt like a home. Mr. Crosswell approached her, his expression humbled and grateful. "I don't know how to thank you," he said softly. "You have saved them, and perhaps even me." Eliza shook her head. "No thanks needed. Love and courage were enough. That's all it took." And as night fell over the mansion for the first time in decades, there was peace. The curse had been lifted, the children's sleepless torment ended, and a family once fractured by fear and tragedy had begun to heal. The mansion, once a place of shadows and whispers, was filled with quiet warmth, the legacy of love, courage, and hope. Eliza smiled, tears glinting in her eyes. She had come into the mansion as a poor maid, but she left as a savior, a guardian, and a part of a family bound not by fear but by love. And somewhere, beyond the veil of life and death, a mother's spirit smiled, knowing her children were finally free. The 6 children slept that night, and every night after. Their laughter returned, their hearts healed, and the mansion was no longer haunted by sleepless whispers. And it all began with one brave maid who dared to love and believe in hope.